When your husband looks you in the eyes and says, "It's just one night, she's my dream woman, and I need to know what it feels like." You don't cry. You freeze. My hands went cold. My heart hammered like it was trying to escape my chest. I couldn't speak. I wanted to ask him if he was joking, if I was dreaming, but nothing came out. Caleb had always been careful with words. Calm, steady, dependable. The man who held me when I cried, who laughed at my silly jokes, who told me I was the only woman he'd ever want, now told me he wanted someone else, even if it was just for a night. His voice didn't shake. His eyes didn't waver. He sounded almost proud, like he was confessing a harmless truth. But inside, I felt shattered. I tried to understand. Why? Who is she? I asked, my voice trembling. He named her, and it was like a punch straight to my stomach. Elara Vincent. A client. Beautiful, confident, and the kind of woman who always seemed to get what she wanted. Caleb said he needed to feel what he imagined, that it wasn't about leaving me, just about curiosity, a fantasy he had to close. He even promised he'd come back. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. I wanted to beg him not to do it. But none of those things happened. I just stood there, numb, like the air had been sucked out of the room. The man I loved, the man I trusted, had opened a door I never thought existed in our marriage. I remembered our life together. The late-night talks, the small victories, the quiet Sunday mornings with coffee in hand. Was that all just a pretense? Had I been living in a dream that wasn't real? The disbelief slowly gave way to a strange, hollow sadness. It wasn't just about one night. It was about the betrayal, the breaking of a trust that I had believed was unshakable. I watched him pack a small bag. He didn't look back. No apology, no hesitation, just determination. He walked out the door and into a night I couldn't follow, couldn't stop. The sound of the closing door echoed like a final sentence. I was left in the quiet house that suddenly felt empty, staring at the space where my life had been whole, and wondering how it could feel so shattered in just a few words. I didn't cry at first. I didn't scream. I just sat down on the couch and tried to breathe. Every time I thought I might speak, my voice failed me. Every time I tried to move, it felt like the floor beneath me had vanished. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't plotting. I was just frozen, caught in the sharp, cold reality that my husband had chosen someone else, even if only for a night. This night changed everything. It was the start of the story I never wanted to live but had no choice but to survive. I woke up to silence. The bed felt too big, too cold, and Caleb's side of the closet looked different. Half of his clothes gone, the shoes I'd loved seeing by the door missing. I touched the empty pillow beside me, and for a moment hoped it was all a nightmare. But the room smelled the same, the sunlight crept through the blinds the same, and the truth pressed down on me. He wasn't coming back. I tried calling him. The phone rang, and then went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Blocked. My stomach dropped. Panic clawed at me. I felt trapped inside my own body, watching my hands shake as if they belonged to someone else. Every corner of the house seemed to mock me. His coffee mug still on the counter, the newspaper I'd folded the night before untouched, the quiet that had never existed in our home before now suffocating me. Then the phone rang. I picked it up, hoping it would be him, hoping for an explanation, a mistake, anything. It was his mother. Her voice trembled and cracked. She was crying. "Lydia, he said he needs to find happiness," she said between sobs. My hands went limp, and I sank into the couch. That wasn't a one-night fantasy. That was a plan. He had already decided. He had already left. I sat there, stunned, staring at the wall. The world felt like it was tilting. I couldn't focus on anything. The dishes in the sink, the sound of birds outside, even my own breathing felt foreign. I tried to go through my day like nothing had happened, but at work, my coworkers noticed. They asked if I was okay. I forced a smile, but my eyes betrayed me. My hands trembled when I picked up the chart. My voice sounded hollow even to me. Everyone could see it. I was unraveling, slowly and painfully. I kept replaying the night before in my head. The words he said. The calmness in his voice. How he didn't look back when he left. My mind raced through everything, trying to find a reason, a misstep, a clue I had missed. I felt foolish, blind, heartbroken. How could he just leave? How could someone who promised forever walk away without a fight, without even hesitation? I realized that this wasn't just about him being with someone else for a night. It was about him leaving me, leaving the life we built, leaving me to pick up the pieces. I felt anger, but it was buried under exhaustion and disbelief. I didn't know how to start putting myself back together, or even if I could. I just sat there, staring, shaking, and waiting for a world that had suddenly become unrecognizable. By evening, the ache in my chest was constant. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow felt threatening. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. All I could do was feel the betrayal settle into my bones and try, somehow, to keep moving in a world that no longer made sense. I started hearing things about her from friends I trusted. Whispers at work, hushed conversations at the grocery store, little hints that she wasn't just any woman. They called her a luxury realtor, charming, confident, and someone who had a habit of getting what she wanted, even if it meant breaking other people's lives. Every word cut deeper than I expected. I needed to see for myself. I drove to her street, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. The houses were large, immaculate, like something out of a magazine. And there it was, her home. Big windows, manicured lawn, expensive cars parked in the driveway. And Caleb's truck. My stomach dropped, and my chest tightened like someone had shoved a fist inside it. I stayed in the car, not moving, staring at it, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. But it was. Hours passed. I watched the lights flick on and off inside. Shadows moved behind the curtains. A laugh, a figure passing by a window, another glass of wine set down on a polished table. My heart ached in ways I didn't know were possible. Every sound, every movement, felt like it was directed at me, like the life I had built with Caleb had been ripped away and replaced by this new, perfect life for them. I thought about knocking, about confronting her, about yelling at them both. But something inside me shifted. Anger bubbled up, not wild and uncontrolled, but steady, sharp, and focused. I realized that fury could be my fuel. I didn't need to crash into them blindly. I didn't need to scream or beg. What I needed was patience and strategy. I needed them to see me when the time was right. Sitting there in the dark of my car, watching their world move behind those expensive curtains, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The pain was still there, gnawing at my chest, but now it was paired with clarity. I would rebuild piece by piece, but differently. I wouldn't let their choices define me. I would be stronger, smarter. I would make them realize what they had done and what they had lost. For the first time since Caleb left, I felt a seed of control take root. It wasn't revenge for the sake of cruelty. It was justice. It was the knowledge that while they were celebrating, I was planning, learning, growing. I didn't know exactly what I would do yet, but I knew I wouldn't be invisible. I knew I wouldn't be broken forever. The night fell, and I stayed in my car until the street lights flickered on. Shadows danced inside her house one last time before I drove away. I didn't look back. But the thought of what was coming quietly, patiently, gave me the first real sense of hope I had felt in weeks. The seed had been planted, and I would let it grow. The bills kept coming, one after another, landing on the kitchen counter like tiny, cruel reminders. The joint account was empty. Caleb had taken everything. I stared at the numbers over and over, hoping they would change if I looked long enough. Eviction warnings arrived in crisp envelopes, the words black and unforgiving. My wedding ring felt heavy and useless, like it was a chain I couldn't remove, and every time I looked at it, it felt like a wound on my finger. Mara, my sister, called almost every day, trying to help. She brought groceries, offered money, even suggested moving in with her for a while. I refused it all. I didn't want pity. I didn't want anyone's charity. I wanted my life back, but I had no idea how to start. I felt like I was drowning, and the water was my own despair. One night, I came home from an extra shift, my legs shaky, my head spinning from a few too many drinks. I stumbled on the front steps, fell into the porch railing, and then something strange happened. I started laughing, hysterical, shaking laughter that sounded like a scream trying to escape. I realized that Caleb had taken everything from me, the savings, the car, the furniture, everything except the mortgage. He hadn't even left me completely empty. Somehow, that thought made the ridiculousness of the situation hit me all at once. I laughed until I cried, until my sides hurt and my tears ran down freely. It was rock bottom. I had nothing left, and yet somehow I was still standing. The absurdity of it broke me, and in the same moment, it awakened something inside me. I understood that despair didn't have to be the end. I had spent so long letting his betrayal define me, letting it take over my every thought, but now I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Clarity. I promised myself then that if he could walk away, lie, and rebuild his life on someone else's happiness, I could rebuild mine. I wouldn't do it out of anger alone, though anger was there, simmering. I would rebuild with purpose. Every choice I made from that moment on would be mine. I would work, save, and create a life that was strong and unshakable. That night, I felt the first spark of something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a long time: power. Not over him, not over anyone else, but over my own life. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. I realized that the moment I hit the absolute bottom was also the moment I could finally start climbing. The laughter, the tears, the chaos inside me, they were the sound of awakening. From that night on, I stopped seeing myself as the woman Caleb left behind. I started seeing myself as someone who could survive, who could fight, who could rise from the ruins he had left. And for the first time, I believed it. I started small. I sold my jewelry. The pieces Caleb used to say reminded him of us, and it felt strange to let them go. But I needed cash. I picked up extra shifts at the hospital, sometimes working 12 hours straight, letting the exhaustion numb the emptiness. When I moved into a smaller apartment, it felt empty at first, too quiet, but slowly I began to make it mine. I unpacked boxes, arranged furniture the way I wanted, and started seeing that I could exist without him. I focused on myself in ways I hadn't allowed before. I walked in the mornings, ran in the evenings, cooked meals just for me. I laughed at small things again, like a cat outside my window or a song on the radio. Each day I felt a little stronger, a little lighter. The sadness was still there, of course, but it didn't control me anymore. I was learning how to breathe without holding back tears, how to smile without feeling guilty, how to be alone without feeling lonely. That's when I met Reed. He worked at a garage near my apartment and was quiet, calm, and steady. We started talking when my car broke down one day. He didn't pry, didn't judge. He listened when I vented, when I cried quietly in the corner, when I shared pieces of my story. There was no advice unless I asked, no pity, just a quiet presence that felt safe. Over time, he became a friend, someone I could rely on without fear of being judged. Meanwhile, I began writing everything down. Every lie Caleb told, every account he emptied, every manipulation I could remember. I didn't do it for the police. I didn't even plan to use it immediately. I wrote it for myself. I needed to see the truth clearly, to have it in black and white, so I could understand exactly what happened and why I felt the way I did. Each page I filled was a piece of control I regained, a step toward the reckoning I knew was coming. As I wrote, I realized I was no longer the same woman who had sat frozen in our living room the night he left. I was rebuilding myself, piece by piece, stronger and sharper. I was learning patience, strategy, and the quiet power of resilience. I could feel it growing inside me, a steady, slow burn that wasn't about revenge yet. It was about becoming whole again, about being ready for whatever came next. For the first time in months, I felt hope. Not the fragile kind that shatters easily, but the steady kind that grows quietly, persistently, in the places you thought were lost forever. I was becoming someone I could trust again, someone Caleb would never be able to break. Months passed, and I slowly began to feel like myself again. I had a routine, a rhythm, and a small circle of people I could trust. Life felt quieter but steadier, and I started to think I might actually survive this, even grow stronger from it. Then one afternoon, a thick envelope arrived in the mail. The glossy paper and elegant script made my stomach twist before I even opened it. Inside was a wedding invitation. Caleb and Alara. Their names together in black letters on pristine white, like a cruel announcement of everything I had lost. The date hit me next. Exactly 1 year from the day he walked out of my life. I stared at it for a long time, my hands shaking, the paper trembling in my grip. Part of me wanted to tear it to pieces, throw it into the trash, forget it ever existed. But another part of me smiled. Not a happy, warm smile, but a sharp, knowing one. The audacity of it, the boldness of sending it directly to me, sparked something I hadn't felt in months. Rage, yes, hot and burning, but also clarity. I realized in that moment that I had changed since he left. I was no longer the woman who had sat in silence, numb and heartbroken. I wasn't weak anymore. I wasn't lost. I held the invitation to my chest and let the anger settle, transforming into a quiet, simmering determination. I could go to this wedding, not as the broken wife who had been left behind, but as someone entirely unexpected. Someone strong, confident, and in control. Someone Caleb would never see coming. The thought made my heart beat faster. I imagined walking in, calm and poised, every eye on me. Not because I wanted revenge in the messy, shouting sense, but because I wanted him to see exactly what he had underestimated. I had spent months building myself up, regaining control, and now I could show it without saying a word. I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't plead, I wouldn't even speak if I didn't want to. My presence alone would be proof that I had survived, grown, and become someone he could no longer manipulate. The invitation wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a challenge, a spark, a test of how far I had come. And I realized I was ready. Ready to step into a room where my pain had started and step out of it stronger, proud, and unshaken. I placed the invitation on my kitchen counter and looked at it again. 1 year from the day he left. That gave me time. Time to plan, time to prepare, time to become exactly the woman he never expected me to be. And when the day came, I wouldn't just walk into that wedding. I would own it quietly, powerfully, without a trace of the fear or pain I had once carried. For the first time in a long while, I felt a rush of excitement. Not for love, not for him, but for me, for the woman I had become, and for the reckoning I knew was coming. After I received the invitation, I knew I had to be ready. I couldn't just walk into that wedding as the same woman he left behind. I spent months quietly gathering everything I could about Caleb and Alara. I dug into Caleb's hidden debts, the small financial mistakes he had tried to hide, and even discovered a property scam he had helped cover up during one of his construction projects. Every detail I found made the picture clearer and my resolve stronger. Reed helped me carefully and anonymously. He didn't ask questions about why I was doing it, and I didn't explain more than I had to. He simply helped me organize the evidence, making it easy to understand and ready for the right moment. I trusted him because he never judged me, never pushed, just quietly supported me as I planned my next steps. While I worked on the plan, I also worked on myself. I started a new job that gave me independence and pride. I dressed better, walked taller, and spoke with calm confidence that surprised people who hadn't seen me in months. Inside, there was still anger and pain, but on the outside, I looked composed, even serene. The transformation was deliberate. I wanted to appear in control, strong, and untouchable. No one, especially Caleb, would see the woman he had underestimated. It wasn't about ruining them in a messy, public way. I wasn't trying to yell or shout or humiliate. I wanted him to realize quietly and painfully exactly what he had thrown away. Every piece of evidence I collected, every small victory in my life, every hour I spent building myself back up was part of the plan. It was about showing that I had survived, that I had grown stronger, and that I no longer depended on him or anyone else for my happiness. I spent evenings reviewing the papers, making notes, double-checking everything. I imagined the moment I would finally reveal the truth, watching Caleb's expression when he realized I was no longer the same woman, the woman he thought he could leave behind without consequence. That image alone made the months of work worth it. Through it all, I felt a strange satisfaction. The storm inside me, the pain and betrayal, had turned into focus and strategy. I wasn't being cruel. I was being deliberate. I was claiming control over my life and my story. By the time the wedding day arrived, I knew I was ready. I had my evidence organized, my appearance perfected, and my mind calm and sharp. I wasn't there to fight or beg. I was there to show, without words if necessary, that I had survived, that I had rebuilt, and that I had become someone Caleb could never forget. For the first time in months, I felt power. Not angry power, but steady, controlled, undeniable power. And I knew that when the time came, he would see it, and he would regret underestimating me. The day finally came. I arrived at the wedding without an invitation, but I didn't need one. I wore a dark green dress that hugged me just right, my hair and makeup perfect, my posture calm and deliberate. Every step I took was measured, confident, and quiet, but inside my heart raced. I wasn't just attending a wedding. I was stepping into a room full of lies and secrets, armed with the truth. When Caleb saw me, the color drained from his face. I could see the shock, the disbelief, and even a hint of fear flicker in his eyes. He had expected me to be gone, forgotten, maybe even broken. Instead, I was standing there, poised and unshaken. I watched as his smirk faded and he struggled to find words, but none came. Alara noticed me too. She smirked at first, confident, unbothered. But when I walked past her and leaned close enough to whisper, I saw her smile falter. I said, "You're marrying a man who can't stay loyal, and a criminal who's about to lose everything." My voice was quiet, calm, but sharp enough to cut through the music and chatter around us. I didn't need to raise it. The words were enough. Without another word, I placed a small envelope on the gift table. Inside were the documents I had spent months collecting. Caleb's financial fraud, his hidden debts, the property scams, and even Alara's forged signatures. Every paper, every note carefully organized. The chaos I had been preparing for quietly began to unfold. I didn't linger to watch the immediate reactions. I didn't need to. I knew what I had set in motion. The murmurs started almost immediately, the confused looks, the whispers. Caleb's expression went from shock to panic, and Alara's confidence began to crack. I felt a strange calm as I walked away, knowing that the storm I had built was already taking hold. I left the wedding hall without a word, my steps measured and steady. I didn't need applause or recognition. I didn't need to gloat. The truth had been delivered, and that was enough. I had shown Caleb that I was no longer the woman he could control or underestimate. As I stepped out into the cool air, I felt a sense of release. The months of planning, the nights of anger, the painstaking work of rebuilding myself, it all led to this moment. I hadn't just survived. I had taken control. And now, I could finally watch from a distance as the consequences of his choices began to unfold. Within days of the wedding, everything started to fall apart. Caleb's company came under investigation, and the news spread quickly. His carefully built reputation crumbled as people learned about the scams and hidden debts I had uncovered. Clients who once trusted him pulled out, contracts were canceled, and his workers whispered behind his back. I watched it quietly from a distance, feeling a strange mix of relief and satisfaction. Alara didn't escape either. Her real estate license was revoked after the forged signatures were revealed. Her confident smile disappeared from public events, replaced by nervous glances and hurried explanations. The woman who had seemed untouchable was suddenly exposed, her charm powerless against the truth. People who once admired her kept their distance, and gossip followed her everywhere. Their wedding, which they had hoped would be a perfect celebration, became the opposite. The lavish event, the smiling faces in photos, the sparkling decorations, all overshadowed by the scandals that quickly emerged. Journalists called, social media exploded, and friends and family whispered behind closed doors. What had been meant to be a start of a new life together turned into a public disaster. I didn't attend any of the fallout. I didn't need to. I watched it unfold from the safety of my own home, quiet and steady, with Reed by my side. He didn't ask me to explain or relive anything. He simply offered support, a calm presence that made me feel grounded. He understood that I didn't need him to fight for me. I just needed him to be there as I watched justice quietly take its course. Caleb tried to reach me. His calls came in one after another, desperate, pleading, filled with panic and frustration. Each time, I ignored them. I didn't feel pity, and I didn't feel anger anymore, just clarity. I had done what I needed to do, and now the consequences were his alone. The man who once left me shattered was now the one scrambling, exposed, and powerless. I realized how far I had come. I was no longer the woman who waited helplessly, heartbroken, or desperate for answers. I was calm, composed, and in control. I had rebuilt my life while they destroyed theirs, and I could feel the satisfaction of justice being served without ever having to raise my voice or demand it. Watching Caleb and Alara struggle to hold on to what they had, seeing their confidence crumble and their plans fail, I finally felt a sense of peace. The tables had turned completely. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the sleepless nights had led to this moment. I didn't need revenge to feel strong. I only needed to live, to rebuild, and to watch as the truth worked itself out. With Reed by my side, I understood that the power wasn't in punishment or anger. It was in surviving, in growing, and in knowing that I had risen stronger than anyone expected. The destruction of Caleb and Alara was a consequence of their own choices, and I could finally breathe, free from the shadow of their betrayal. Months later, I found myself standing by the ocean, the wind pulling at my hair and the waves rolling in endlessly before me. I hadn't felt this calm in years, not since the night Caleb left. The anger, the heartbreak, the sleepless nights, all of it had faded into something quiet and steady. For the first time, I felt peace, a sense of release I hadn't thought possible. Reed walked beside me, quiet and steady as always. He didn't need to say anything. His presence was enough. I didn't feel the need to talk about the past or the chaos that had followed. I didn't feel the need to explain myself. Just being there, moving forward, breathing in the salty air, made me feel like I could finally exist without the weight of betrayal pressing on my chest. I wasn't ready to fall in love again, and I didn't plan to. I didn't need someone to complete me or to heal me. I only needed myself, my strength, and the knowledge that I could survive everything life threw at me. The freedom I felt wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, steady, and real. I could smile at the horizon, feel the sun on my face, and know that I was finally free from the past. In my hand, I held my wedding ring, the last piece of that life with Caleb. It felt heavy at first, a reminder of what I had lost and what I had endured. But now it felt like a symbol I no longer needed. Slowly, I opened my hand and let it fall into the waves. I watched it disappear beneath the water, swallowed by the endless sea, and felt a weight lift from my chest. I whispered softly, almost to myself, "It was never just one night. It was my awakening." And it was true. Every moment of pain, every night spent crying alone, every second of fear and doubt had led me here, to this moment of clarity, strength, and freedom. I walked along the shore with Reed, feeling the sand under my feet, the breeze on my skin. I didn't need closure, I didn't need apologies, and I didn't need to hear from him again. What mattered was that I had found myself, reclaimed my life, and learned that freedom didn't come from anyone else. It came from within. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe deeply, without hesitation, without fear, without regret. I was whole, I was free, and I was ready to face whatever came next. Not as a victim, not as a shadow of my past, but as the woman I had fought to become.